Hello everyone, welcome back to another podcast at PSA. Today we are at the fantastic Larne Football Club. We have got Gary Haveron here, who is Larne's head of academy. Gary and me met a few years back at a coach's trip in Portugal, and we've kept in touch ever since. He's very kindly agreed to have us up this morning to do a podcast and have a bit of a tour around the grounds and stuff.
Well, thanks very much for having me on, Matt. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Gary. We're just going to start with the usual question that we ask all our guests. What was your earliest memories of playing football growing up? What team did you support? Did you love obviously playing? And what was your earliest memories of kind of getting involved in the game?
It's funny because my early memories is I didn't play much football as a kid. I don't know why, because my dad's a football mad fan and that we come from a footballing family. I never really just had that bug for football at a very early age. It was probably only whenever I started becoming friends with boys like my mate Stephen Mills and that, who works at Niffle, and with my mate Andy Bell, that they started going to football on a regular basis. And I was going as well, I want to go with my mates. And my mate goes, well, you need to play football because they're going to football. And we were getting towards that end of secondary school, almost coming up to about 8 or 9 years of age. And it was only then whenever Millsy and that like me started palling about a lot more closely, and that we started going out and kicking the ball about, and then it went from there. It's why I tell people all the time, don't panic about development because it happens at different stages. Yeah. Obviously, if you can get it in as early as possible, it's a good thing, but kids will develop in that at their own time as well. So when Millsy started playing football for getting into football, I started getting into it, and then the school football team started forming. There was no real clubs at that stage there for youth football. It was like we had Inver Colts here in the town, but it didn't really start until you were about 12 or 13 years of age, so there was nothing below that. And then football only really started in primary schools whenever you got to P6, P7, when you started getting selected for the teams. So I suppose then that's when it sort of really kicked off for me, and that there whenever Millsy started going, he was getting in the school football team in P6, and I think, well, I want a bit of that too. I suppose what happened for me then, very luckily for me, was I was a natural left-footed player, so I give every team a little bit of balance when there wasn't maybe too many left-sided players. So I started getting into the school football team and that there, maybe by default because I played on the left-hand side. So that was how it started going, like, you mean, and that was probably my earliest memories. But it was probably about 9-10 years of age before the bug really started to happen. And then for me, it just has been my whole life ever since. It's going back a few years now, but like 30 odd years now there, and I've been involved in football, and I've never really wanted to do anything else.
So you get that wee bug for football probably later than most kids, and then you realise you're quite good at it. What was kind of the next step into maybe like a proper club situation?
Well, again, like I said, I wouldn't say I was the best player, far from it. If I look at my school football team, I had people like Gareth Macaulay was playing in our school football team. There was a lad called Didi McCormick who was like, these boys were at a different level to me. DJ Fergie and that there, he's quite a famous DJ around the world. And DJ Fergie was our centre half at the time, So all these boys were much, much better players than me as a kid growing up. But I just had that bug. And then whenever I moved to secondary school, I suppose that's when it really started to kick on for me a little bit, where I then started playing for Inver Colts. So now I was doing my training during the week as well as playing my matches. I was a big Larne Tech Old Boys, which is a local amateur league side. They used to have a wee training sessions on Saturday mornings, and I went there religiously. I never missed. I got on the bike and rode the bike up and out there to go partake in training. And a fella called Paul Hardy and Tom Wilson were there, and they were brilliant. Paul Hardy was an Irish League legend. He scored a winning goal for Ballymena against Larne, funny enough, in an '89 Irish Cup final. And he was taking training up in our wee local playing fields. So I got the bug from them, and I loved it, and as I went through secondary school, I started to develop. I went from being a left winger, as such, a left midfielder, into a centre midfielder, and then eventually dropping between centre half and then. So I started becoming more key to the game, and more key to playing central positions, and I started becoming bigger. I grew into myself, and out there I was a good size, and out there, so it became quite physically so it became sort of that leadership role sort of developed as I went along. I started then playing for Inver Colts, and out there, which then transitioned into Larne Youth, and I started playing for them. But I came to about 15, and I was sort of probably on that knife age where I knew I was getting I knew I could play to a certain degree, and that, I knew I wasn't any better than anybody else, I didn't feel, but I felt my attitude and that there was, I just wanted to kick on, and I wanted to do more, and I wanted to maximise my potential. I suppose going back then is Larne didn't have a multitude of facilities like this here that we see behind us, Matty. We didn't have it. It was a small town out there, and you were limited. We would turn up for training, and the coach might have turned up with one ball, no cones, no bibs, and there was about 40 kids trying to get into one team. what we lacked in terms of that technical coaching that we wanted out there, we were really resilient. We fought for everything, because we were fighting against another like 30 kids to try and get in the starting 11. Do you know what I mean? So there was a real competition for places, and it was a bit as a case of survival of the fittest. So again, like I said, as you go back to the whole kind of development of football and out there in the UK, we always had that sort of bulldog spirit, and that they will run through brick walls and stuff, I guess, but technically we'll get caught out when the other team keeps the ball off us. That was very much the mantra, like, I mean, we had a lot of that, like, I mean, and not much of this. You know what I mean? If you're, that's football terminology 101, but we didn't have that, like, I mean, so again, I suppose I needed to get better at that side of the game, about that technical level, like, so it did. So I actually left Larne at 15 and I went to the Cruise, and I went up to Crusaders for the year, and that was a big commitment for me, even as a young fella at that age, because I had to go and get the train, and I was going up to Belfast, and was getting off the train and running down the shore road to go to Seaview, and running down to Lochside, and out to the train to run back and get home, and out there at 10 o'clock at night on the train. And I was a young lad, like, you mean, and I suppose that was kind of part of your growing up period, like, you mean. But through that, as a result, I was in around the Northern Ireland set up and that, like, I mean, Northern Ireland schoolboys and that, an international set up, and I was getting a bit of recognition out there, and then I got a few opportunities to go across the water, and then trials started to be offered to me, like, you mean, to go across and out there, and Joe McCall, like, I mean, he was on our coach as well. Joe was massive for me as a kid, because Joe brought me into the County Antrim set up.
For the Milk Cup?
Milk Cup, like, well, it was a Milk Cup, it was a thing called the BP Cup then, so it was a competition they ran against the counties. So it was, and Joe brought me in there, and he made me captain of his team in that day, and that probably, like in anything else in that day, you need these wee boosts in order to go to the next level. You know, that was a confidence boost for me, that he believed in me enough to be the leader of that team, and then you sort of take on that role, and I suppose that's something that stayed with me throughout my career, that I wanted to take responsibility, I wanted to be a leader. I was always a communicator, like, I mean, I was never shut up, never stopped talking, but it was a good bit of advice I got. It says, go in there, organise, lead, because every team needs something different. You know, if you're a team full of ball players, it maybe doesn't work. If you're a team full of talkers and big men, it maybe doesn't work. So you need to have that mix. And I suppose very early in my career, I identified what I was and what I brought to the team, and then it was just about a case of then refining the other skills and that there, and complementing what I actually was, which was that a leader and an organiser, like, you mean, and like I said, is all them people give me something different. I went Charlie Boyd, the coach at Crusaders, Joe McCall, the coaching house was second to none, and now I was getting coached in that there for probably the first time, and I'm 15 years of age, which is crazy to think in that, like, you mean, at 15 years of age, it was my first real introduction to proper coaching. So it was, and structured sessions, and challenging me as a player to be thinking about football rather than just running after the ball and just dogging all the time, like, to win it back. You know what I mean? So they started putting layers on me, I suppose, as a player, and that, like, I mean, and then with the opportunities I got through the Northern Ireland setup, I got offered an opportunity to go to Wolves. As a 15-year-old. And
just on the move to Wolves, they obviously came through the Northern Ireland setup, but did they have to come and watch you, or, you know, just talk us through that process of going across the water?
So again, like a lot of kids growing up in Northern Ireland, we didn't have a great deal in that there as a family. Like, I mean, my family were very close. My mum, my dad, my brother, and my sisters. I have a great family, and we spent so much time together. But we weren't going on foreign holidays, and we weren't going here. We go on trips down south and that there, over the air, I think, on the boat and that, because my aunt lived there, and we stayed in her apartment and things like that there. You know, so it wasn't like we had massive means out there to go here, there, and everywhere. The first time I really flew was probably when the first time in that there, Wolves gave me a plane ticket and said, you're going to come over and trial. There was a fellow, Jim Morrison, that spotted me playing for Northern Ireland, like, so it is, for the schoolboys, and he spotted me playing that, and he gave me that opportunity, like, to me, to go across, and from that point changed probably the outcome of my life and that there, and where I ended up playing. He gave me a great opportunity in that there to go across and see what the whole setup was, but he literally at that stage is 15 years of age. There's your plane ticket, get to the airport, someone will meet you on the other side. And as a 15-year-old, it was kind of a bit nervy, like, you know what I mean? And but I was excited, and this was the opportunity that I've been working hard for, like, you mean, and really was desperate to get. So it is. So again, there was so many more talented boys than me at that age, Matty, like, you mean, but it was just somebody seeing something in you and somebody giving you that opportunity, and then it's up to you what you do with that opportunity and how you maximise that. Like, you mean, other boys probably deserved it more so than me at that time. But he's seen something in me, and that, like, I mean, and I don't think it was silky smooth skills. I think he's seen the leadership, and he's seen the you know, how I wanted to be in that there, and how I wanted to take control of things, and I think that's what he's seen in me, and that's what got my foot in the door at Wolves. So you get across to Wolves at what, 16? I was still 15 in that, like, 16 years of age. I was coming up doing the GCSE. What was the major differences you noticed football in England compared to football over here? Because obviously nowadays there's a lot more
training time, even for players over here. You think of like the scholarship that Larne run. There's the different colleges and stuff that are mixing in with clubs and stuff. There's a lot more contact time for players, whereas maybe you're only training twice a week.
Well, I suppose again you go back to that one. I guess when you're football mad, you find a way and out there to train with somebody or anywhere you can get. Like, I mean, so back then I suppose training nights were a Tuesday and a Thursday, but I would have gone up and trained with the Larne Tech old boys maybe on a Monday night, like, I mean, and done the running and done as much as I could with the men. So I did. I was playing for the BB at the time, like, I mean, I was in the boys brigade as a kid, and that, like, I mean, Coleraine, another great pathway. So I was playing football for them, like, I mean, so I was maybe doing training Mondays and Wednesdays with them between the two clubs, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I was fit, like, I mean, because I was playing lots of football. I was maybe doubling up, playing matches on a Saturday, playing for both the Crusaders under 16s, maybe playing for the battalion, the BB battalion on a Saturday morning as well. Like, so I was maybe playing 2 matches on a Saturday and that, and then I was flying out. At 15 years of age, I went from flying out that first week to flying every weekend. So I went every weekend as a schoolboy and flew over because they played on a Sunday. So I'd have done my training during the week, and I would have played Saturday morning, played Saturday afternoon, and flew to England on the Saturday evening time. So I got in around about 7 o'clock, having played 2 matches that day, went and stayed in a hotel, picked up again. They couldn't look after you any better. Came and picked you up, took you to a hotel, you met the rest of the boys and that there, started kind of getting in amongst that environment, and then you would have played football the Saturday morning, and then I flew home and that there the Sunday evening, and back to school on the Monday morning. And I did that every year for every weekend, for a year. I did that in the lead up to them. They offered me a contract about halfway through, but they wanted me to continue coming across and playing, to get to know the boys that I was going to come in with, and that, and the school boys they already felt that was strong enough to go onto the programme. But it's just that environment you're going into, because not to say I was a big fish in a wee pond, I don't think that was ever really the case, not like, I mean, but you were competing against boys that you knew quite regular, and you knew they were good players and everything else, but you knew the players you could get advantage of too. You were then going into an environment where everybody was exceptional, like, I mean, you were going in against the best of all the kind of kids not there from different countries. So it wasn't just kind of being the best in your town or being one of the best in your town. You were going in against the best of people who were in the countries and that, like, I mean, who went on to have unbelievable careers. So if you look at my youth team and that there that came through at Wolves, you had Matt Murray and that there that went on to be England under 21 international, played in the Premier League for Wolves and that there, was he's an ambassador for Wolves and an unbelievable goalkeeper, but badly hampered with injuries, or he would have been, I believe he would have been good enough to be an England international. You had Lee Naylor there and played, who went on to play for like Celtic and Cardiff and played Wolves first team. You had Julian Lescott, who was like a left centre half that went on to play for Everton and Man City. You had Keith Andrews, who was an Irish international, like, I mean, he went on to have an unbelievable career as well. You had Robbie Keane in that, like, I mean, who was obviously an Irish international, so he was a phenomenal player, like, I mean, for his Premier League career, and a Premier League legend. So you were going into them environment now training with these boys, and that's not to say Adam Proudlock, he went on to play for Sheffield Wednesday, the 2 Clark twins and that there, who both play for Bradford and different clubs. So we were littered. We had the youngest ever Welsh international playing for our youth team at the time was a fellow called Ryan Green, and Ryan made his debut for Welsh international first team and that there when he was 17 years of age. So at that stage he was the youngest ever Welsh international. He's playing our youth team. So it shows you the environment you were going into. So straight away you think yourself, well, I'm massively underdeveloped here, like, I mean, physically I'm probably not strong enough because there's no strength and conditioning or anything like that there. You're just playing loads of games, so you're like a wreck because you're just playing loads of football and not even putting weight on, like, I mean, or even muscle mass. You're just constantly, like, eating and playing and that there, you know. So you're probably tall and lean and that, like, so it was at the time. So you're going in there and physically these boys have been getting loads more contact time, of quality contact time. I think the contact time is a massive thing, but it's what's the content of the quality, or what's the content not there of that contact time. If you're getting exposed to a high level of coaching, that there's only signs the reason you're going to become a much more intelligent player, a much more well-rounded player, like, I mean. Whereas if you're going in there and you're just running around chasing after things not there, and the structure of the sessions aren't everything they need to be. So you're going into an environment with these boys not there, and they were phenomenal, like, I mean, and how quickly they moved the ball and how they seen things so much faster than you. So straight away you were going into the environment and playing catch up. Technically you needed to improve in that, like, to me, because your touch and your passing wasn't the same as them. My right side, I needed massive amounts of development that day because I was very left side dominant. So I was at that stage because nobody's fault to pull me aside and go, you might need to use that. So you might need to use that at some stage, you know what I mean? I was a header and kicker, or like, do we hit it and kick it? I could do that all day long, but can you get it down and play? And now they're asking you to play. So you're going into that environment and you think, so am I slightly undercooked? Am I not ready for this here level? And there is doubt that creeps in. But then again, having now about my dad and the way he was with me and that, like, I mean, your mentality was everything, like, you know what I mean? So my mentality was there as every day I got a chance of getting better and closing that gap, and every chance in that there, I'm going to take every opportunity that's presented to me. So that's what I sort of felt in that there. My mentality definitely kept me in that environment and definitely got me into that environment to begin with. My attitude in that there to want to improve, my mentality in that there to want to be in that environment, and that meant everything to me. So that's what kept me in there, because it wasn't my technical ability, I was behind in everything that they'd done, and it was again because we didn't have access to the coaching, we didn't have access to the facilities, we didn't have access to the resources for coaches to upskill them. Now in that there, where we got our coaches here and we've got 78 coaches in our youth set up, you know, they've no excuses in that there, because they've got access to a lot of resources, they've got access to expertise up through the club, from the first team manager all the way down, that we got to infiltrate that into them, support them in that there, and how we develop our players to go on and play on our first team. But like I say, going back then, it was just a case of you had to roll your sleeves up and fight to stay in the environment. And what an environment it was. Like, we were incredibly successful as a youth team. You know, we won everything, you know, absolutely everything that we could play in. We won the league every year. We won every cup that was domestically. And that, like, I mean, the only thing that disappointment for us, we didn't actually win at the FA Youth Cup. We got to a quarter final, like, so we did, and we went out on penalties in a game that we absolutely dominated, because I believe that team was certainly good enough to go on and win an Irish Cup, an FA Youth Cup. So it was, like, I mean, that would be my biggest disappointment that we didn't. But we were playing on Molyneux and that, like, I mean, at that age, and that I went from playing in kids football and that there and playing here. By the time I signed and went to Wolves and that, like, so it is as a schoolboy, by the time I went there as a 16-year-old and that there, I was playing reserve team football straight off the cuff. So now in that day I was going straight in, because I got a little bit lucky, I suppose. Now there, was I ready for it? Again, probably not. But Lee Naylor got thrusted into the first team environment, so the kid that was blocking my pathway went straight into the first team one, because we had injuries to a fellow called Stephen Froggatt and a fellow called Michael Jeltz, both got injured at the same time. So now he got promoted up. So I got promoted up into the youth team. Now, albeit I had to slide out and play left back, like, I mean, but as an 16-year-old, you didn't mind that.
You're just on the pitch.
Just on. I'm out there with the first team boys, because reserve team football was reserve team football then. It was all the boys not there, like men. It wasn't like now reserve team football where you could be like 16, 17-year-olds. It was all men. So it is. So you were playing when I was senior players like Darren Ferguson, that there, Alex Ferguson's son. You were playing alongside people like who were playing in the first team, like Dean Richards, who went on to play for Spurs and that, like, so it is. You were playing with goalkeepers with vast experience and that, who were talking you through games. Play with Mixu, Pat Lane and Steve Bull. Now you're playing with these boys now, and I think so. 2 minutes ago I was playing on a park pitch and that there Mollusk. Do you know what I mean? Now I'm playing at Molyneux. I'm now going round to playing at places like Old Trafford, and I'm going to places like that there that I would never have dreamed of ever being anything close to. So it was like, and it shows you how quickly football can develop, like, and open up doors for you. You know?
So you progressed quite well at Wolves. If you could just give us like a wee, you know, overview of your time there. Did you get into the first team? Did you get near the first team? Just how did that kind of next few years develop?
Yeah, because as you get thrusted up very quickly, I was always I dropped in and played left side centre half, and that's really where I wanted to play, like, you mean, but again, you played where you were told to play, and there was no questions asked. So I would have mixed between that there, like left back and left side centre back, and that then I came in and was more of an established reserve team player and a youth team player at centre back. So it was me and a big fella called Gordon Sims, Big Sims, and that there, and me, we were both Larne boys, and we both went at the same time, right? Do you mean? And it was great to have that company and that support and that from home. But yeah, you were progressing through well. Like, I mean, we played every single game for the reserves for the 2.5-3 years I spent at the club. I played every single reserve team game. We when you got the opportunity to come to go and train with the first team, you went into that environment, and again, it was another level above again. So it was. But I got to play against, made my debut against Northampton. You know what I mean? And you go into a game like that, like, I mean, and just everything around it is just so much more professional. Not to say that our Resi football wasn't like, I mean, but you were going into the big environment, playing in front of the big crowds. So as you were now going down to play, we went down to play Northampton, and I didn't know I was going to play. I thought I was going along to help the kit man, to be truthful, like, because you would have done that back in the day. You're part of your job, so supporting the kit man. But when you're thrust into that environment, and you go in there and you name the team, and now you're playing. The butterflies were there, they're fluttering hard. You don't have time to pick up the phone and say, Mum and Dad, do you want to come over and watch? Because there was no access to that. So you just fired into that environment, like, so you were, and it was a case of, well, sink or swim. But you had so many good players around you. You know, I made my debut in that, like, and I played left side centre back, and Keith Curry played centre half. He was an England international, and a fellow called Gribbers, not there, and Neil Coleman, not there, played on the right hand side, like, so did. So there was your back free, and that. Then I played left side of a free, and that there, and you're just going, wow, you know what I mean? And such a different, the pace of the game, the strength of the players that you're playing against, their movement intelligence. Now we were a level above it because it was a cup game, so it was. So we beat them comfortably, and I done really well. Funny story about that one is I played against Northampton. There was a big fella called, I'm not sure his second name was Wilkinson. I don't know if his first name was maybe Gary Wilkinson, but he was their record ever signing. So was Northampton. They paid like 300 odd grand for him. So about 25 minutes into the game and that there, I fractured his cheekbone, so I did, by going for a header with him. And we just it was as innocent as get out with no help. It was head on head. He went to try and flick it, and I tried to head it, and I've come through and headed the ball, and he tried to flick it. He's caught me on the top of the head, and his whole eye socket was fractured. That was his first game. It was his debut. This paid a fortune for him, and he missed the next 6 or 7 months. So he's there with a fractured eye socket, like, do you know what I mean? But again, it's just how football sometimes works. So, like I say, that was the first thing that happened in that game. There afterwards and that there, I suppose you're always just trying to compete to stay in that environment and that there, and you feel like I felt that was a brilliant debut and that there, and I really wanted to build on it, and I never got that many more opportunities to really build on it. We did have people like Julian Lescott coming through, who was also a left side centre back, and an absolute man mountain of a kid, like, you know what I mean, he's huge. So I suppose he came through and that, like, you mean, and sort of then he kind of obviously kicked on and had the career that he did and that, like, you mean, and he was superb, massive lad and everything else, physically so big and everything else. So again, your opportunities there are limited, like, you mean. Do
you just think it was because of the competition?
I think we had brilliant, outstanding centre halves at that stage who never seemed to get injured. Like, I mean, I think sometimes as a kid you're always waiting for that opportunity. And I remember going in and speaking to the manager shortly afterwards. When I first went, there was Mark McGee who gave me my debut, and then Mark left, and that like, so he got the sack and that there. Unfortunately, and Colin Lee stepped in. And Colin Lee was all about senior players more than youth players and that there. And then at the day, listen, he wanted to establish himself as a number one, and he goes, well, I'm going back with the people I know and trust. So throwing a kid and keeping a kid in there would have been a big risk for him. And I understood. I understand it now. So it's because I've been a first team manager, like, I mean, at the time I'm thinking, so why are you not playing me? I've just played out of my skin, like, I mean, I've just done really well now, then why am I not getting more opportunities? But then it comes back to that whole thing we talked about, like, we've talked about is experience. How do you get experience unless somebody's willing to give it to you? I mean, so my biggest frustration was, well, I was 18, 19, so I was busting to play first team. I desperately wanted to play in that, like, to me, for that club and out there, because I loved it. I was fully integrated into the club. I just loved the place. So I did, like, I mean, but I couldn't get first team games because I wasn't experienced enough. And I suppose whenever I've now been a manager, when you're going to throw a centre half in at 19 years of age, it's a risk as a centre half. He makes a mistake and you're straight on and goal. It's a risk as a goalkeeper, as a full back. Higher up the pitch, it's less of a risk. Middle of the pitch, it's a risk. Centre forwards, that's why so many 17, 18-year-olds make their debuts as wingers or centre forwards, because it's less of a risk. There's damage limitations to what you can do if they lose a ball. You lose a ball as a centre half, or you get bullied as a centre half, and that there you're bang in trouble, and it's direct results of its goals against. So again, you're looking for them opportunities, and I never really probably got the opportunities that I really wanted because of lack of experience and everything else. So I very quickly, I played a Resi game on the Wednesday night, and I played against Bolton. And I happened to play against Ida Gudjonsson and Bo Hansen, who played up front for them. They had loads of Scandinavians at the time, Bolton. And I ended up playing a game on the Wednesday night, and I got called in on the Friday morning. I was training the Thursday again. I still had school at that time. That's because we had to do school on the Thursday. Came in and did a recovery session, went to do my school lesson that day. Came in the Friday morning and says, you're going to Bolton. And I was going like, well, where even is Bolton, and what happens there? Like, do you mean, and how do I do that? He says, I don't even know where it is, and never mind anything else. And as a 19-year-old, you're just told that's where you're going. And I probably never even questioned it. I never even asked the question.
Was that on a permanent?
Yeah,
you were just told your time was up and you had no real choice in the matter.
I just obviously in that day I felt that my opportunities were going to be limited, like, because Julian was coming through as a left side centre half and that, like, I mean, they already had established first team players and that, like, I mean, even Joe had to wait his chance eventually to get in as well. But it is, I just felt like my opportunity was going to be limited, and they came in and that there, and away I went. So it is, and that was it. It was like pack a bag and that there and get on the train and get yourself up to Bolton, like, I mean, they want to speak to you, and that was that, like, I mean, and as quick as that, like, I mean, that's how quickly your life changes in England, you know what I mean? And again, being a bit naive as a kid and that, like, I mean, I probably never challenged it enough. I probably never asked enough questions. I went, okay, it's a new opportunity for me, because at that time Bolton were flying. Wolves were sitting about mid-table in the league, but Bolton were flying out there in the top end of the championship. So I was thinking to myself, well, I'm actually moving to a club in that there that arguably has progressed a wee bit further than my own club. So I never seen it as a backward step, like, I mean, I just felt it was a disappointment because I just loved the place so much, and I've become quite settled. I became in Wolves.
Do you think if you knew what you know now back then, you would have challenged the manager and maybe said, can I stay and fight for my place? Or do you kind of know all round that your time at Wolves was probably it up.
I was probably coming to a stage where I was frustrated that I wasn't getting opportunities as well. Do you know what I mean? So as a kid, now you're a bit naive. You think everything, you want something straight away, like, you mean, and you're not patient, like, you mean, is what you need to be. And you probably think, so I'm busting for that opportunity, and you're not giving it to me, and now I've got an opportunity to go. I also kind of felt that there then it was an opportunity because they wanted me like there. So Bolton had made the approach and they wanted me there, and I thought, well, I want to go somewhere and want it. And then if I'm not going to get opportunities here and I'm going to be limited, like, you mean, and maybe having to play out of position as a left back, because I knew I was never quick enough to be a left back, really, to be honest. I just felt it was going to be a bit limited my opportunities. So I was realistic, you know, in that there, like, maybe that wasn't going to get other than I wanted out of that. So the opportunity to go to Bolton came about in that there, and I jumped at it. And I went up and I had 3 great years at Bolton where I really enjoyed it. And it was a different environment, different change of circumstances, like, you mean, but the club transitioned massively from whenever I went there to whenever I left. So it is in the 3 years I spent at the club. When I first went there, it was the gaffer was Colin Todd, like, you mean, was a manager. You had Phil Brown out there. You know Phil Brown from the whole thing, like, so it is, you know. Phil Brown was the assistant manager. It was a good setup and that, like, you mean, I wouldn't say it was everything it could have been, like, do you know what I mean, in terms of, like, you know, I mean, the structure and everything for the whole club. So it is, but obviously in that time then when I went there, I'd signed there. Colin Todd had been down watching the game. His son Andy Todd had played against us in the Bolton game, and he went down to watch Eirik Johnson because they were signing Eirik Johnson at the time, and that whenever he was coming back from an injury from Iceland. So he was down watching the game, and thought he was the one apparently who bought me there, like, do you know what I mean? So now the manager signed me, so now I'm thinking, brilliant, great, he wants me there. So I went up and that, like, do you mean, I went away straight away on pre-season tours. I was straight away with the first team. I wasn't in with the kids not there as much. I went straight into the first team environment. I went to where did we go to? We went to Denmark and that there on pre-season trip and that there. Went to Denmark. I went to Austria and that there with the first team. So straight away you were being thrust into the first team environment, and you went there feeling, I'm part of this. You know what I mean? I'm not kind of trying to push into that environment. I'm here. So it is, and I'm already part of this environment, you know.
So you had 3 years at Bolton.
Yeah.
And again, if you could just kind of summarise the Bolton experience and how that kind of went for you.
Yeah, I suppose again when you look at Mark McGee gave me a debut out there and then got the sack out there. I suppose the same thing happened when I went to Bolton out there. I was only at Bolton 3 months, and again I went on pre-season and stuff, I guess, and I was in and around first team environment and everything else. And then he didn't get the sack. Colin Todd, he came in and quit. So we had sold Per Franson. We had loads of Scandinavian boys at the time, like, I mean, some brilliant Scandinavian players like Per Franson and Klaus Jensen, Eirik Johnson, who went on to play for Chelsea and everything else, in Barcelona, unbelievable. Maybe the best player I ever played with and against, like, I mean, Eirik was exceptional. So it was, but you had them boys now, you had Bo Hansen, Michael Johansson, like, I mean, you had Gunnar Bergersen, Arne Gullartsen, Jussi Jaskalainen. You had loads and loads of Scandinavians, so the dressing room was all the Scandinavian boys, and then all the sort of English sort of boys, but people like Mark Fish was there, like, I mean, and I was just absorbed with being around them. You know, I mean, Mark Fish was brilliant with me, took me under his wing and that, like, I mean, I played golf with him. He brought me around his house for food and everything else on a regular basis. He was brilliant with me, and he was captain of South Africa at the time. So I went into the environment there, and you had Gunnar Bergersen, who was captain of Iceland, who's centre half. You had Mark Fish, who was captain of South Africa. You had Mike Whitlow, who would play like 500 odd games in the Premier League and that there in England, you know, so that was the environment you were going in and competing with. So I knew it was a level below them, a couple levels below them at least, but at least you were in amongst them and that, like, you're seeing what they do every day and what they ate and how they conducted themselves and how they trained every day, and I loved the environment and I was in around it. And then what happened was Gaffer left and that day because we sold Per Franson, and in came Big Sam Allardyce. You know, Phil Brown had took over for about 6-7 games, then Big Sam came in and completely changed the whole club and the structure of the club and how we moved the whole club forward. And he had unbelievable success in that, like, I mean, and as much as I stayed there and he gave me a new contract and I stayed longer and everything else, I still never got them opportunities because he was bringing in foreign players left, right and centre. Like, loads and loads of foreign players came in that, like, I mean, during his tenure, like, I mean, you know, they end up with Yuri Turkev, a World Cup winner, Ivan Campo and that there, who played at Real Madrid. You know what I mean? Herrera, who played at, like, you know, he brought in all these JJ Okocha, who came in and that there at that spell. Ricardo Gardner obviously was still at the club coming through, but I came through them. The only player that really came through at that time was Kevin Nolan, who was in our youth team, and Kevin out there came through and went on to have an exceptional Irish League career. But you were in around them boys and that then, just loved the environment, but you were always going, well, where's the opportunity going to come to, and how am I going to break into this here first team? It was very, very difficult, and unfortunately, like I said, it never came to the point where I got anywhere near enough opportunities as what I needed. So it is, and it eventually goes, well, listen, we've got so many players now, like the club over expanded, it got Premier League football, now we're in the Premier League and out there, so the levels went up again. We were bringing in, like, every day there was maybe 5-6 trialists at the club every day. And Sam was bringing boys in from freaking anywhere, any corner of the world these boys were coming in from. So it is, and they were coming in that day, and you're looking at it and yourself, well, if you're not an established player now and he's bringing in so many players that day, you're probably not going to be. So it is, so it became like a multinational thing, like, so it did, you know, you were going into change rooms not knowing how to speak to anybody, sign language and hand language, like. But listen, unbelievable experience just to say that you've been in that environment, and there's certain things in football that money can't buy. You only have to get there and there based on what you have, not about your ability or your attitude, and everything else is the only thing that can get there. So I don't look at it, like, I only ever see it as a massive learning opportunity for me to be in and around them players, and to say that I've been around them boys and been rubbed shoulders with them boys and played in environments with them boys, like, you know what I mean, and it was huge for my development at the time. That there we learnt so much during my time at Sam and with Sam, and that he was massive into sports psychology. Opened up a whole new range of things for me that I'd never really touched on before. Massive around strength and conditioning, and he was one of the first ones to bring in the GPS and everything else. He came from, he obviously picked up a lot of things that happened in America and tried to bring it into the Premier League. Massive on stats, like huge. Pomo was his thing, and that their position of maximum opportunity. So you knew in that day, and we played the same system as everybody across the club. You put the ball into where you had the best chances of creating opportunities to score goals. So yes, he got labelled a bit of a long ball team, but he understood that if he bought the personnel to match what he wanted to do, then we've got a chance of being success. And you can't argue that his success was unbelievable, what he had at Bolton. So he recognised that there with what he had, the budget he had, and that, like, I mean, that what he needed to do to get the level of success, and they were the best at it, like, you know what I mean, and they were a handful for anybody. But you were training with people like Kevin Davis every day who were beating you up, and Pedersen who were beating you up, like, you know what I mean, and massive in a one-on-one defending and stuff, I guess. So again, you became a better all-round player, not there for just being in the environment to begin with, and then what he did around the whole structure of the club. The place just exploded, and there was loads of people, like, I didn't even know what half of them done, so he did, but they were all brilliant, like, do you know what I mean, of what they done, like, do you mean, so great learning curve and that, like, do you mean, and I went down and was sort of to petter out a wee bit during my time at England, went down to Swindon to play in that, like, do you mean, and I broke in at Swindon, and I was doing well at Swindon, like, do you mean, Andy King was the manager. I originally went out on loan, like, so I did, like, so I went down there and ended up signing permanent for a year. Andy King was the manager, really enjoyed it. I was getting loads of football and loads of opportunity, so I was, and then he got the sack and that, like, so it is, because the results weren't marrying up at Swindon, and then came Roy Evans and that, there was at Liverpool, and Razor Ruddock, and Razor Ruddock was a left side centre half, I was a left side centre half, so straight away in that there, you know, you got gassed, you know what I mean, and then he came in and took over in that there, like, and I never really got many opportunities there afterwards again. Went to Yeovil under Gary Johnson, that, like, I mean, but picked up a bit of a hernia when I first went down, and ended up having a hernia operation, like, so hernia problems and that there, so it did when I was down there, and it was just a struggle the whole time I was there, because I've gone from being at big clubs. I was down now at Yeovil, and Yeovil was still a really good club, fantastic setup. Gary Johnson's a brilliant manager. His son Lee Johnson, who's managed at Bristol City and Sunderland more recently, brilliant lads. Terry Skiverton, and that, there was loads of brilliant lads down there, but again, I was just struggling. I was probably getting to that stage where going, I need a bit of stability in here, like, I mean, I've been moving around for the last wee bit now, I need a bit of stability. I'm in my early 20s now, like, so it is, so I spent a good time in England, and I just felt like I had to pick up the phone, and that was a hard conversation to pick up my phone to my dad and say, listen, mate, I think I need to come home here, like, I mean, I think I need to come back and establish myself again and that there, and get a bit of stability in my life and that, like, I mean, because I don't know where I'm going here at the minute, you know, so you can lose your way in England, especially when you don't have that support system around you, like your family, and now you're moving away from your friends and that, like, I mean, and as much as you're on the phone quite a bit, you just need that stability of something that there actually to put down a bit of roots, and football is very difficult to put down roots because of the nature of the game, based on contracts on short-term deals and stuff. I guess you move here and there and everywhere, so again, like I said, that was a hard phone call, because that wasn't, at the time I felt that was a disappointment. I felt it was letting people down, that I wasn't gritting in as hard as I could, but at the stage now it was just gritting in just to go to Yeovil, even to go there, and then I spent like 7 months there, like, just gritting it out, so I did, and I really should have just came home at that stage now there and just re-established myself, and that's what I ended up doing, like, you know, but it just shows you not there. When I picked up the phone to my dad, he goes, right, I'll be over for you in the morning, and he came over the next day and helped me get my stuff together, and back home I came.
So your time at England then came to an end at Yeovil, and you moved over home, and did you find it easy to get a club straight away, or what was kind of your next movement?
Do you know what's funny, like, is I suppose when you're out of sight, out of mind, that there, like, I mean, it's not like now where a lot of bunch, like, us as a club at Larne here now, we'll have a lot of kids on our radar as to who we think maybe or might be potentially coming home over the last period of time. There was nothing really in place. Do you mean of that there when it was happening? Ronnie McFall had phoned me from Portadown and had a bit of an inquiry about me, like, so there was a few other people in that, like, but the whole way along through I was playing for Northern Ireland, so I was playing 21s, 18s, 19s and stuff, so I had a pretty decent rapport in that there with the coaches and stuff there, because I played in that there, like, I was lucky enough to play international football the whole way throughout my career. So yeah, I suppose that came about 21s I was playing, like, so it is, I wasn't long coming back after I was 20, 22, 23. So it is, but like I said, people didn't know who I was really, like, do you mean, because I've been away in England and I went as a kid and that, like, do you mean, so you're going, well, nobody really knew me, but Paul Kirk knew me, like, do you mean, who was at Distillery. And Kirk had worked with the Northern Ireland setups and stuff, I guess, here, and knew me from that. And he got straight on the phone. And I was thinking to myself, well, I just need to go somewhere to play in that there for the next few months and that, like, so I do, just to get myself back in that there. And a wee bit of me had put myself in the shop window a little bit. So I actually came back in that there with Distillery. So I did, and I came back with Kirk, like, do you mean, and I only played there for about 6 months. But I loved it, like, do you know what I mean? I absolutely loved it. And he was a perfect manager for me at that stage. You know, at certain stages of your football career, or even your development, you need people around you out there that actually can get the best out of you. At that stage, coming back from England, it goes, you're dealing with a lot of disappointment, like, to be disappointed it hasn't quite worked out the way you wanted it to. Feeling that you've maybe let people down, or disappointment in people, like, to me. So you come away with that going that you're a bit dejected and you feel it in yourself. So you do, and your motivation out there, maybe, I don't know if my motivation ever dropped, but I definitely think to myself, well, oh, maybe football isn't the career I'm going to have, like, whatever I want to be. Paul Kirk at that time is a massive, like, he's all about that there, the psychology, like, I mean, he's a brilliant psychologist in terms of, he just knew what to get the best out of you. He just knew how to pick you up in that, like, and at that stage I needed somebody to get there to really come and get in behind me and really put that massive belief in me, so I could get the belief back in myself a little bit to a certain degree. And he came in that there, and within a space of about 2-3 games he made me club captain, so he did, like, I mean, which was massive. I was now coming back playing Irish Premier League football, like, so it was. I was playing really well, like, I mean, playing centre half and that, like, I was in the team every week and out there, I was captain, everything else, and now I was leading this club. So I went from being, like, I mean, always sort of feeling that I was just on the fringes of things, of making breakthroughs, to now having a real massive leadership role within the club. Like, even my time over in England, like, listen, I captain youth teams and that, like, I mean, I captain reserve teams, I was captain of Wolves, I was captain of Bolton reserve teams at stages, like, you know what I mean, of my career. So I always had a wee bit of leadership about me. This was the first time I was doing it properly at first team level, where I was kind of the person that they came to at the club. So Kirker, for that reason out there, like I said, that was massive for me, what I needed. And from the day I signed out there and became captain, all he was doing was torturing me to try and sign a new contract. But I always knew this was a short window for me to kind of push myself on. But we had a great squad down there. You had some vastly experienced Irish League players, like, I mean, like, I first went in and played with Philip Major and Brian Strain. Do you know what I mean? And they're two Irish League legends, like, do you know what I mean? So what even coming into the Irish League, you've soon realised one of the first games I played against was like Glenn Ferguson, like, to me. So you're playing against like a very seasoned professional and everything else. But again, because of what I'd done there, I kind of earned a bit of a reputation out there. I'd done well for the club and everything else, and clubs then started to phone out there. So like Linfield approached me, David Jeffries had made an approach for me, Glentoran was showing an interest in me, Marty Quinn at Coleraine had showed an interest in me. So he did, like, I mean, so then like things started to kind of play. I just focused on playing out there, just loved playing, like, I mean, it was just a brilliant experience. It was a great opportunity for me to come back and establish myself. And then, like I said, at the end of the year I sat down and I had a few decisions to make towards the end of the season as to what I was going to do. My big mate Gareth Macaulay, who we were childhood friends and that, like, I mean, from back in the primary school days and that, like, I mean, was torturing the life out of me. Come to us in Coleraine and come and play with me, and we'll go get out there. Like, I went and met Davy Jeffries, funny enough, at the I met Davy and that there over at the Windsor Park, like, so he did, and me and my dad went. And anybody knows my dad and that there knew he was straight to the point. Do you know what I mean? There was no beating around the bush with my dad. He was as straightforward as they come, like, do you know what I mean, and really honest, I suppose. And at that stage, Davy had Winky and Noel, didn't he, and two really established centre halves who were club legends and everything else, and went on what careers that both boys had. So it is, but at that stage, Davy basically brought us in and that, like, he says, my dad was basically, well, where do you see him playing? Because at the minute he's playing left side centre half. Where do you see him playing? He goes, well, we've got the partnership between Winky and Noel and that there. The way I see him is he'll play left back and we'll eventually integrate him in. And my dad said to him, do you think he's a left back? Like, do you know what I mean? He goes, and he looks at him, Davy's looking at him, my dad's looking at him, he goes, you'd be better signing me at left back than signing him at left back. He says, Gary either plays centre half and that there, or centre midfield, or he doesn't play. He says to him, if he's playing him at left back, he says, you're never going to get enough out of him, like, or get the best out of him. Davey's looking at him and goes, no, I disagree. And my dad was like, well, you mustn't know much about Irish League football if you think he's a left side centre. If he's a centre, a left back, like, do you know what I mean?
And how did you feel?
I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, this is Linfield, they're going to win everything, like, do you know what I mean? This is the biggest club in the country, like, obviously the way they were, like, you mean, totally dominating leagues and stuff, like, there's a chance to win medals and everything else. But you know what? See, ultimately we goes, right, that's us, thanks very much for your time. My dad says, that was us out. And out we went, like, you mean, I'm going to go, well, that didn't go quite according, because I think I pretty much went to sign. So it did and that there, and it took a bit of a twist, so it did somewhat. But see, ultimately, like, I mean, my dad was absolutely right. Would I have won more medals? Absolutely. I could have been part of that whole setup and that there, and I could have won medals and stuff like this. But what massive contribution would I have made to that? Would I have been a left back and that there and been on the fringes of it? Would have been a lot of boys who won medals at Linfield and that there, but how much did you contribute towards it? I was never somebody to sit on the fringes of things and that there and be a bit part player. If I wasn't going to go and be a mainstream and that there and be there, like, you mean, it was never my ambition to go and actually sit on my arse and that there and pick up medals. I wanted to play. You know what I mean? And my dad made the right decision at that stage. At the time, I wasn't too sure. But listen, I went to Marty Quinn that there. Like, I mean, Marty Quinn was always on my ear and that there, and he was massive. I always had it in the back of my head. And then Gareth and that there was on with me as well. So the deciding factor was I wanted to go to Coleraine. And I just felt like that there, because Marty Quinn goes, you're going to play here, and you and Gareth are going to do this, and this is where it's going to be. So it was like, so that's what it was, and Marty was a massive factor in it. Like, I mean, I actually signed for Marty in the back of his electrical fan out there behind Dee's Diner in Larne. So I did, you know what I mean? But that was Marty, and he made me believe in my, like, you know, he really wanted me there, putting part of his football club and out there, and that's what I went with, the manager who really wanted me there and really believed in me, rather than thinking, well, eventually I might play somebody. So I don't regret that decision at all, like, you mean, because my dad was right in that there, like, for he was looking after my interests, and that's where you get, when family got involved, like, you mean, you think, so, oh, everybody thinks you know everything about football, but his only thought process was me and my happiness and what I was going to get out of it. And I think I got more out of my Irish league career doing that. Like I said, medals are great and that there, but they just collect dust. My memories are playing. I played matches, like, you mean, I played in big games and that there, and it was a key part of any club that I played for. So I went to Coleraine, had 2 brilliant years down at Coleraine, played every minute of near enough every game that I was there, bar the wee spell when I broke my ankle, like, so I did, and I was out for a wee few about 5-6 weeks with a broken ankle, and came back really quickly from that, like, you mean, and went back and played and that. But me and Gareth McCauley and that there played at the back. He's still really good pals with, and he's gone on and done phenomenally well, like, and could be prouder of him. I mean, but we had a brilliant Irish League club at that team at that stage that was who's who of Irish League. And I went from a dressing room of distillery of people maybe slightly past their best or maybe not quite ready for Irish League football, going into this room with Pat McAllister, who's just a mountain of a man, like, in terms of what he brings to leadership and stuff. And I actually wanted to be like Pat. Pat, well, that's who I want to be, and I wanted to be like him in that there, like, how he led in the pitch, why he grabbed his teams and dragged us through games. Tony Gorman was there, you know, Sturty Clanahan, Nice was there, Stephen Beattie, Rory Hamill, Jody Tolan, you know what I mean, Barry Johnson as a young players coming through was me, Gareth and Barry Johnson was the 3 young players coming through at the time. And you think to myself, well, they've all done alright, like, you know what I mean, out of Irish League football, me and Johnny and Big G, what he's actually went on to do. But you were coming through with them role models and them boys to look up to, Davy O'Hara and Nets and that, like, or Hare and Nets, sorry, they were your role models, and you looked up to them and you were going, okay, this is men's football now, and we're really established side, and our expectation was go and challenge them for leagues and win cups and stuff. And I got the Irish Cup with them and that, like, you mean, and they went back-to-back Irish Cups 2003 and 2004, and that would be the time when I was at the club, and what an experience it was to be part of them. Do you know what I mean? But again, it was just a fantastic experience, but unfortunately Coleraine had problems that financially, and unfortunately they just couldn't, it was then getting where you needed to be established. And I had played with Tommy Wright down at Ballymena. Tommy Wright just got the Ballymena job, and I had played with Tommy at Bolton. So I already knew him and that there, and we already sort of had a relationship. Tommy came as covering out there for goalkeepers, an experienced goalkeeper covering the Stevie Banks and that there, and at the time and that, so I was at Bolton. So I already sort of had a relationship with him and a friendship with him and that, like, so whenever he got the Ballymena job, as much as the Coleraine and the Ballymena divide is a little bit of a...
I was going to say, how did that go down?
Aye, well, fans didn't forget it, let me forget it quickly, like, you mean, but at that stage, you know, I think Coleraine was just where they were, and Ballymena were certainly a more progressive club in terms of the infrastructure they have at Ballymena and everything else, and Tommy going in there, I knew how professional Tommy was not there, and how he seen the game and what he would bring to the club and that, like, so I felt it was a great opportunity, and I didn't think when I was signed I would spend the next 8 years there, but it was probably where I established myself the most, where I was the most settled. Now, you mean, every year I pretty much signed another 2 years, not there, sign a year, another 2 years. It's where I wanted to be, and again, Tommy very quickly, like, made me club captain and that, like, so I became club captain at Ballymena, like, you know, and that responsibility and feeling a big part of a football club was something that there I always kind of was what everybody in football should really crave. Do you know what I mean? Is that they're being a big part of something, like, do you know what I mean? And taking on extra leadership roles off the pitch and out there, and doing things off the pitch as much as on the pitch, and being a good role model and interacting with fans and everything else and out there. I always found that quite comfortable with me, and that I always felt that with giving part of your time was part of a whole Irish League experience. Like, do you mean that I play with a boy like my dad was always like I go back to my dad quite a bit, but my dad and that worked with Gary Blackledge, and Gary Blackledge at the time was an Irish League legend, but my dad and that and him made double glazed windows together, do you know what I mean, and manufactured double glazed windows. But that's what it was. Gary Blackledge went out and people like 5, 6, 7,000 men on that would have cheered him on that there at the weekend, and then he would have given him into the factory with my dad on a Monday morning. And that's what I always liked about Irish League football, that you had that interaction. There wasn't this big, you know, you look at players nowadays in the Premier League, they couldn't be more detached from fans, do you know what I mean, because you can't touch them and you can't be around them and that there, and they get hounded and that there and everything else. But Irish League, you always had that. It was like superstars working amongst us, do you know what I mean? And you always could have worked in the office with somebody and that who played Irish League football, and then they went and did the thing on a Saturday, like, I mean, so it was like a weekend hero you became, like, or a different persona you carried at the weekend. But like I say, I always liked that kind of relationship and that there, and I always felt that was the biggest part of integrating you into a club, was how you interacted with the fans. And the more you interact in that there, the more chance that you build relationships with them, and the more they want to see you be successful, and the more you'll give to that club. You know what I mean? That was always just who I was. Now there, you either loved the place or you shouldn't have been there. Do you know what I mean? So I always kind of struggled with boys who didn't fully integrate themselves into the club, because they're easily forgot. And my biggest kind of, I suppose, motivating factor in any kind of club that I ever played for was what was my impact. Will I be remembered in that there at the club of what I done in that? Like, do you mean, will I have a legacy there? Like, do you mean, it's not a legacy, like that sounds a bit up my own backside a little bit, but will I be remembered for what my contribution was to that club? And that's all I really cared about, was that I went there, I gave absolutely everything I had while I was there, and that, like, do you mean, and people would remember you for that, you know?
So you played near 300 games for Ballymena.
Yeah.
And what then brought that time to an end?
So at that stage again, like I said, I was lucky in that day. I always played wherever I went. I never was a fringe player or sat in the fringes of things. At the time, Roy Walker was the manager, and there had been a few changes management-wise in that there since I've been there. But I had a great relationship with Roy Walker. Again, when I talk about managers and the different managers at different stages of your career, like, as much as Paul Kirk was a massive one for putting confidence and stuff in me, and Tommy Wright was very, very professional in his whole setup and everything else, I think Roy Walker made me look at things completely different, because he is such an intelligent man. He is so articulate, like, do you mean, and about how he sees things. He made me more aware of everything else around me and that there, and about how you build relationships with people to get the best out of everybody. I mean, so he made me more aware of that, like, do you mean, and he gave me that again because of the level of intelligence of the man, like. So he was brilliant for me at that stage of my career. But my career now was coming like about 33, 34 now. I broke my leg twice during the spell not there at Ballymena. I broke my leg in December 2018. So I did, like, I remember down at Bangor, and we were winning 3-0 in a game, and the ball broken out there, and I went out and I went into a tackle as hard as I could go. It was on YouTube. I went out as hard as I could not there, and I've hit him, and I hit a wee lad Marty Ferner, and as I went to kind of win the ball, 93rd minute 3-0 up, probably no need to make a tackle, but I was never built not to do that, like, do you know what I mean? So I went and won the ball, but I caught him awkwardly and I hit the underside of his stud, and I ended up, I broke my tib and my fib and my left leg, which was a bad break in that, like, I mean, I remember because it was our Christmas do, it was around the 17th of December, and we were supposed to go on a Christmas do that night, and I was sitting in A&E going, I shouldn't be here. Why didn't I just leave that ball be, like, I mean, I had no need to make a tackle, but again, like I said, it was just not built that way. So I broke my leg then, and then I came back from the broken leg, and I came back for the tail end of the end of that season. But I broke my same leg again in August. So I did. So I broke it again down at Coleraine, where the wee lad went in for a block. I went in for a block tackle. I burst through one, and I sort of spun out, and I went into a block tackle. As I went to block tackle, I sort of had my leg opened up, but the wee lad went to make a tackle and he slipped, and he came over the top of the ball. Now I don't hold any grudge against him. It wasn't so. I did slip, because I remember thinking at the time he just went in fast to close me down, and he slipped, and his back foot went, and I lifted him up, and he came over the top of the ball and caught me right in the middle of the shin again, right in the same place, and he hit me right in the stud, right on the bone, and it broke my tib again, like, so it did, like, so I broke my shin bone. So I did, like, down in Coleraine, because I remember, like, thinking I'll be okay, I'll be all right, and I tried to run it off, but I was in A&E and about an hour later out there, and I couldn't run it off. I was in agony. So I broke the leg again out there. So I suppose that was part of my deciding factor. I think myself, okay, well, football's a vulnerable thing. I need to start gearing up towards other things. I just become a sports development officer. So the whole time when you come home at early 20s and that, like, we're having no life skills or no real experience, and education probably went a little bit by the wayside for me, because I was going to England every weekend, and I was going to go be a millionaire footballer. What do I need GCSEs and HE for? Do you know what I mean, when I'm going to be this? So education never was everything that I should have focused in on. Like, I never made it a big priority. Like, and wrongly in my behalf. Mum and Dad certainly pushed me to do as well as I could, but I never really kind of just my head wasn't in it. Like, and my heart wasn't in it. So I had to re-establish myself and go back and re-educate myself in that there and go and upskill myself in that there in a lot of other ways. I didn't really want to go back to school at 22, 23 years of age. So I started going down this line. It was help me in that there. And this is again where you get good people around you, and having good people around you is so important. Well, it is in life and that, like in general. But my best mate was Stephen Mills and that, like, and Stephen Mills was a sports development officer here in Larne. So he had gone to university route and got himself a good job and was working for Larne Borough Council. And I came back at 23 and that there, dossing around that there, what am I going to do with myself? Didn't really know that there, couldn't fill a job application for me because I had no life skills whatsoever. And he goes to me, mate, I need somebody to go out and deliver sessions around schools for me. In football, I go, well, great, I've got a level 1 because they make you do it in England, that there's part of your education. Got a level 1 coaching badge. He goes, right, okay, there's balls, there's bibs, there's cones, away you go. So I was like, okay, right, okay. So you threw it on your back and away you went. So it is, and that was it. And I got fired into a primary school and that there, like, so I started building up this coaching the coaching kind of working out there as a casual coaching out there for Larne Borough Council. So one school led to 2 schools, and 2 schools led to 3, and that, like, and Millsy goes, I need somebody to go and deliver another sport, like, a multi-skill sport. I go, okay, well, you put me, like, so the council goes, we're going to put you on this course. So I then started doing a multi-skills course and out there, and now I was out delivering multi-skills and football. So there's lots of crossovers, right? And then it goes, and then every course that came up through council out there, Millsy would fire me onto it. So I then had a professional fitness instructors award and out there, so I got fired onto that course, and council paid for it, like, through a relationship I had with Stephen. But I was delivering this here on behalf of the council. So I was going around all the schools, delivering all the sessions and out there, and I was working on all these different areas, and I was continually upskilling myself. Any kind of qualifications you can do in sport, I think I probably pretty much have one. So I did, like, and I sort of built up this here CV and that there of all these coaching awards, which kind of led to my next kind of how I got the sports development job at the Cliff. So I became the sports development officer at the Cliff. So now in that there, I was up and running programs for Sport NI, like, and it was all based on KPIs and that there, and about how I had to build that all up. So I built that up and that there, and I ran the facility. So now I'm sitting in a sports development position out there, having built it up and that there, having started off with no qualifications, bibs, balls and cones, and built it into something bigger and that there, to upskill myself to get this opportunity. I became a sports development officer for them and I worked for the Cliff for about 6 years and that, like, but at that stage when I was playing at Ballymena, the demands were getting more not there in Irish League footballers, like, so Roy quickly identified we need to do more than what other people are doing, so we need to train Mondays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, not just Tuesdays and Thursday nights. So we put an additional session in. Now I couldn't do the Monday night because I was delivering sessions and that there for my work. So then I had to go to the stage where I had to prioritise a job and that there, because my son was born in 2010. So it was, like, so I kind of think, well, I need to look at him more, because football's not going to sustain me not beyond that. I need to look at how I look after him and that there, and pay for him and that there, and his upkeep and his whole thing, his mummy, like, looking after them became more of a priority. So the sports development job, and I had an honest conversation with Roy going, I can't do Monday nights, Roy. And he goes, it's all right, Gary, don't worry about it, just do your Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I was never anybody I needed to be the most committed at the club. And if I couldn't be that day, then I didn't deserve to hold the captain's armband, and I didn't deserve to be in the position I was in at that club unless I was the most committed, like. So I said to him, well, I just can't do that, like, and it doesn't work for me, that, like.
Did you try just the Tuesday, Thursday thing for a while, or did you just totally rule it out straight away?
I ruled it out, like, you're in or you're out, like, there's nowhere in between. So it's not with me, it always has been a little bit like that, like, so I wasn't, I just kind of said, well, I just can't do that. I had another year after the year that I had, and it was only the start of, just the start of the season, more or less. And the whole thing was well, okay, well, don't sign for anybody else now, like, because we might still need you and that there, and if we need your injuries and stuff, we'll still have you registered as a player and you can come and play for us and everything else. So it is. So they were brilliant with me, Ballymena, absolutely brilliant. Like, John Taggart looked after me incredibly well. There was so many good people around at the club and that there, and because of what I'd given over the years and that, like, they were brilliant with me. I could have held on for another 2 years and got a testimonial and everything else, but I felt I would have been shortchanging them, and I never went into football to shortchange people or let people down, like, and I felt I was letting people down. So then I was kind of putting Roy in an awkward situation to pick me if I wasn't fully doing the training that everybody else does. And the second you don't play well, like, someone can come back and go, well, why is he not doing it? And I don't have to do it if he's not doing it. So I was never going to put Roy in that position. I had too much respect for the man to do that and everything else. And we had an honest conversation, and we just felt the best thing was to do this here. So I actually went and played in that, like, because I couldn't play in that for anybody else, because they wanted to keep the option open that I would play, but I could play amateur league. So my brother-in-law had just taken over the job at Larne Old Boys. So at 34 in that there, I went from being captain of Ballymena in that there to playing for Larne
Amateur
Boys,
League.
Amateur League, because that was the league they wanted me to play in to give me the option to re-sign. If I'd have signed somewhere else, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was, but I never wanted to play for anybody else. It wasn't about playing for somebody else.
Yeah.
It was about not letting them down. Like, do you mean, more for me, like, you know. And then, like I said, I went and played for Larne Boys, and Millsy was there, like Stephen Mills was there, my best mate, him and Andy Bell and Niall Coleraine, who's a general manager of our club now, like, do you mean, was there. And we had my best friends around me, and I was playing football, because I think growing up, I go back to that Paul Hardy thing. See, as a 12-year-old, my ambition was to play for Larne Boys, because they were the first team at the time. And when he took the Saturday morning sessions and that there, my ambition was to play for them. Yeah. And playing with my mates was always something I wanted to do. I went away at 14 that there, so it is, and I hadn't played to them, and now I'm in my mid-30s, and I knew it was probably me just finishing up playing. And I was happy to do that. Like, I mean, I got everything out of football that I had wanted to get out of it, really. So I went and played for the Tech for a year, like, so I did, and we got promoted, like, so I mean, out of the league and everything else. It was the best year. Scored 12 goals from centre half and that there, like, so I did as well.
And dropping down to amateur league, did you still have the same kind of like standards, or did you kind of have to readjust the way you worked, or
they were brilliant. Like, there were so many good people at the club. Like, I mean, I Tech old boys now. I'm a Tech boy through and through. Like, I mean, I love the Tech and that. Like, so I did. I just grew up and that. They're loving the club from when I was a kid, and I've always been around it, and I've always been a member of the Tech and everything else. But they're incredibly high standards, considering it was an amateur league side. And I think I probably added to that a little bit, and that was my contribution again. It was when I went there. It took a while to get used to some of the pitches you were playing on, and you knew you couldn't play overly much football in some of the areas not there. And everybody kind of goes out to prove themselves because of the level you've been at. So everybody you go up against not there is out to try and get you, like, you know, if you can. But we had a brilliant year. We actually got to the 6th round of the Irish Cup. We were 2-0 up against Coleraine with 5 minutes to go and got beat 3-2. But injuries to key players went off the pitch and that, like, you mean. But we cost them a real shot. Once we got to 2 each, we wanted to concede the third because we were in the run-in for promotion for the league. So we were, like, you mean. So we needed to get, that was a priority. 2 each, we couldn't have gone back down there on Tuesday night and done what we done. But we scared the life out of them, like, you know what I mean. But it was what an experience we had, like, you mean. What a team of really good experienced players, and that they're fantastic. Loved it. Loved every second of it playing for the time. But again, like, standards, professionalism, and everything else, we had them because we had them in spades, not for the characters we had in the dressing room. But yeah, so that was led to that, like, I mean, and then obviously then the next stage of my career was then about always looking about, do I get into football and coaching capacity, do I get into a management capacity? And because I was playing for the Tech and that, like, and just enjoying it and just having fun, everything else, Michael Hughes, who's a big Larne man, like, I mean, 80 odd caps for Northern Ireland, like, I mean, absolute legend, 20 years in the Premier League and that there, scored a winning goal to stop United winning the league. I'd never forgive him for it, for West Ham. So he does, like, he's top lad. He had taken over Carrick and managed, became a big manager at Carrick and taken over the club, and he basically came to me and goes, I need you up with me. I need you to come in out there, help me with the coaching and stuff, and out there, be with my club and that. He says, don't be in round standards. And I thought, what a brilliant lad to learn from, because if I am going to get into management, who better not than someone like Michael Hughes to get in out there and establish himself and out there and become a better coach and start working with men. And it's a great level to get in at, because Carrick was fancy because of what Michael had done at the club, and there was a bit of a buzz around the place. So
they were championship at the time.
Yeah, they were championship.
Fancy to go up.
Yeah, no, heavy, like, probably one of the big clubs out there, like, you mean. So I came in at the end of that year. It was hard for me to leave the Tech because I loved it and that, and I felt I could squeeze another year out of it because it's such an enjoyable experience playing, and I didn't want to let people down, especially your brother-in-law and stuff like that there being there, like, you mean. But ultimately I had to do what was right for me for the next stage of my development and my career and that there, and what I wanted to do was get into management at that level. So management / coaching was always... Coaching more than management, but yeah. Was always in your mind? Because I'd sort of been working, and my coaching career was really, I was working a lot on development programs and stuff, I guess, and mixed levels of ability and that. I was always keen that to move my coaching to the next level in terms of working with men and stuff, I guess. Yeah, I was working with men's groups and I had no bother doing that, transitioning between the two, but it was more, this was an opportunity for me at such a level to get in at football, because I knew I wasn't going to get in that. If I had to start coaching again, I would probably have to go back and take maybe the Tech and that there's an amateur league and that, and work my way back up that way. This was a great level to jump straight in at championship level, and a club that's really progressive and that there, and has got an opportunity to move forward with Michael being there. So that was a great opportunity. So I signed for him and that there, like, but I had no real aspirations of playing. So I didn't like, you mean, but again, Michael taught me into playing that, like, you mean. So I ended up captaining in Carrick for a year. I ended up playing the full season. I played every minute of every game. I ended up having a great year again, like, and really enjoyed playing again, like, so then playing centre of the park and that there, playing in the middle of the park for them, and I ended up like player of the year, players player of the year, supporters player of the year, and all that stuff. And that, like, I mean, I had a really good year personally of playing. I did, but I got the opportunity to coach and do wee bits of warm ups and stuff, I guess, and cool downs and all that kind of wee bits in betweens. And again, it was about standards with me and that there, about trying to drive standards and making sure players were professional out there and performing to a level. And then at the start of the next year, about 7-8 games in, I actually had a thigh injury, and I very rarely ever picked up any injuries like that, like a thigh injury. I didn't run fast enough to kind of pick up these kind of muscle injuries. It was always kind of just like something a bit more like broke breaks more than anything else. But Michael, about 7-8 games in, they lost heavily down at Institute. I was down that day. I never played that day because I had a thigh injury, like I said, and that, like, I mean, and Michael just goes, "That's me done, Gary. That's me finished." I go, "Michael, calm." Like, to me, it's a bad result. We haven't started the season particularly well. Not like, to me, he said we've got good players, like really established Irish League players. You have people like Ryan McCann and Dee Kern and Aidan O'Kane, Kieran Donaghy, Richard Gibson. That there, you know, really vastly experienced Irish League players here. So it is not there. Myself was in amongst that mix. We had a good team. We were a good side. So we just weren't. It just wasn't happening for us at that time. Michael had made his mind up that I was him done. So I talked to him all day on the Saturday, all that Saturday night, like, so I was on with him because I was friendly with him. We had a really good relationship in terms of, yes, I was the captain of the club, but I was also on that side of the coaching staff a little bit, and me and him were really tight, like, to me, so we did have a sort of slightly different relationship for the rest of them. And again, like, about his experience, about where he'd been and what he's done and the stories that he would tell him. I love football stories, like, to me, so I just lapped them up and was constantly just badgering him with questions. I think he left because I asked him so many questions, talked too much with him. I think I forced him out more than anything else. But he threw the head up a little bit and was like, "Ah, there, no, I'm done with it. Like, I'm not the right place for this here." So I got a phone call then the Sunday morning to come up and meet with people. Like, to me, he said, "Michael says, come in and speak to us not there in your capacity as captain." I thought, okay, no bar. I go up and out there and I spoke to Michael, like, so I did, and I went in and the board were sitting there, like Davy Hilditch was there, Charlie Johnson was there, he was there, Peter Clark was there, like, I mean, so they were sitting there going, it was like a mafia, like, you know, sitting in a wee darkened room. But they went in out there and basically said, "Well, what do you think's wrong with the club, or what do you think you would do differently? What would you change?" And that, like, to me, what would you put into practice and everything else? And I kind of just went out there and I just thought they were talking about standards and everything else. And I go, "Right, okay." So it is, and they phoned me later on, like, so I came in out there, I spoke for about an hour and a half with them. So it is, came away and that, like, didn't really think too much of it. And then Michael,
you didn't think that was like near enough like an informal interview kind of thing?
Kind of felt that they wanted to speak to different people. Like, I mean, I felt that the Colin Telford was there at the time, and a wee fella, like another coach was there at the time, and Alex and I felt they'd spoken to them and their opinion that day, and I felt maybe they were trying to get me from a player's perspective about what the players are thinking in the dressing room, but the conversations were more around what I would change about the club, not about what the players are doing or not doing. Like, you know what I mean? So normally when you called in as a captain, it goes, "What's the feeling like in the dressing room? What's the mood in the camp like? How's he reacting to not playing on Saturday? Is he getting around him?" And that, like, to me, and that was sort of my role, like, I mean, whereas this was more about structure of club and about how you move it forward and how important would you put on an academy. So I kind of maybe to just not there from the conversation that maybe they were probing about me to find out how knowledgeable I was and that, like, about it, and was I prepared to sort of do something about it. And then I got a phone call later on that day from Michael saying, "I want you to take it on, I want you to manage the club." And I go, "Michael, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that, like, kind of level and stuff like this here." And he goes, 100% you are. He says to him, "And just get in that there. There's limited expectation of you now after the start we've had." He says, "And just go in there, like, I mean, and just do it." I went, "Okay, I'm just going to do it."
It's a bit easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was like, yeah. So my next phone call was to Stephen Mills, like, to me, who's my best mate, like, to me, and it's not just about being a best mate. I think the relationship we've always had since going back to when we were kids at 9, 10 years of age was always challenging each other. So it is that my want to be better than him was what drove me to kick on in football, and his want to be better than me or stay better than me was his as well. So we were always competing, like, but it brought out the best in both of us, and it really developed the both of us on. I knew Millsy wasn't going to be a yes man, like, so again it goes back to that establishing good people around you. I knew he wasn't a yes man, he wasn't just going to pander to me. He challenged me everywhere and every decision I made, because that's what best mates do, like, to a certain degree, you know. And I knew I could trust him, and I knew he would be 100% there just behind me. So we very much done our coaching whole career. My whole management career was me and Millsy as much as it was me. It was us. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we were, like, do you know what I mean? We were us, like, do you know what I mean? And we made decisions and we spoke about it. Ultimately, I had to carry the can for a lot of things, and I was the one with the big mouth and talk more. He was more of a thinker, and I was more of a reactor, like, you know what I mean? But together we built this good partnership. I would shout and yell at people, and Mills would go around and put the arm around them, and that's where he played a brilliant role, and a very understated role, like, you mean? And he'd obviously been making waves in terms of his own career, in terms of Niffle and stuff like this here, like, you mean? But there was never a conflict. Millsy was only ever there to support me and get the best out of what we had, like, you know. So that season out there, sort of like, we were very, very unlucky. We actually we were probably about 15 minutes away in that there from finishing second in the league and going into a playoff. So we turned it around and we actually finished third in the league in that there. But Michael McCrossan scored a goal, bang, one in the top end. And again, we totally dominated and should have won. If we had beat them, we would have finished second, or even maybe challenged for the league. But that game was a must-win out there, and we ended up, we lost it in the end 2-1, like, so we did. Michael McCrossan, a draw would have been okay, the defeat killed us, like, so did. So, or maybe it was a draw, actually. Tell her it was a draw. We got over it and we should have won it, like, so it is, and we couldn't win the league at that stage. So at that stage then, we had so many senior players and different ones not there, and then there was a budget with that, like, I mean, it all had to go, like, I mean, because we had to cut our cloth accordingly. We had to kind of re-establish that, like, I mean, and we went around building a team in that there at Carrick, and I honestly couldn't, if I had gone out and picked I couldn't go out and pick the same brilliant boys that we had at Carrick as what we had at that time. The recruitment couldn't have gone any better, just in terms of people who were hungry for opportunity, hungry to be at that level, hungry to prove themselves, hungry to show that they were better than that level. Like, I mean, the desire in that group was phenomenal. I mean, we had a captain in Aaron Harmond who just drove us on that there, went on to play for Glenavon. We got Aaron Trainer in from Portadown Reserves. I mean, this lad turned up in that there, and what a rocket he is, like, I mean, but what an exceptional lad he is, and that to have around your dressing room. So he was brilliant for us, and that then we got him from Portadown Reserves. We had Conor McCluskey already at the club, and that there, who was fantastic again, was, for me, arguably, there was definitely the best player in that championship, and that there, and a real talented lad. And then we went about establishing key people, like, to me. So we brought in Bam Neeson and Miguel Chains. Like, when I say Miguel Chains, not there, he had to have been about 400 at the end. Like, so, you know, he had to be at least 40 years of age, not there, when I signed him. But he's still playing for Crumlin Star. Miguel was absolutely phenomenal. What a talent, like, I mean, how that lad had spent all his career out there outside the Premier League, more or less, and that there was beyond me. So it was, like, I mean, but to him coming in to do what he done, what he was like in the dressing room, what he's like as a person out there, he's just a brilliant lad. I just lap him up. I still love him to this day, and that, like, I mean, and what he done for that club, they should have a statue of Miguel Chains outside that club for what he done in that 2-year period for us is incredible. So it is, but he wasn't the only one. Kieran Donaghy was an absolute stalwart for us at the back in terms of that experienced centre half. Dan Kelly, who's still there, was a young fit kid coming through who just needed an opportunity to play. So we did. Aaron Smith and that there, who went on and played, went to the Glens after us at Larne, that there was brilliant, and was another kid who just needed to re-establish himself and be given an opportunity and a bit of belief put into him. But we had so many brilliant lads. Ben Roy came in that there, and a brilliant character. The character in that there that we had in the dressing room, the geliness that we had, and that, like, I mean, the quality that we showed, it showed in the end, because what we did is we won the championship. We won the Steel and Sons Cup. We won the Intermediate Cup. We got to the semi-final of the County Shield. We got to the quarter-final of the Irish Cup. You know, they think two things at the end got overlooked, but that was me, because we held our own against Premier League opposition, and we went there and we put them. We scared clubs in that there because of what we had. They got promoted that year, like, I mean, and what they did in that there, because the pitch at Taylor's Avenue was a nightmare at that time, and that there, and we had to play a backlog of games. What they did was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and it was very much player driven that there, and us all in it together. Me and Millsy was basically just steering them, like, do you mean, and just guiding them a little bit, like, do you mean, but they were just driving it. So they were in it in the end, and there's so much belief in each other, like, do you mean, in the togetherness. Kyle Cherry we signed for Dundela, brilliant signing that there, because he was just a brilliant lad who pulled the strings and gave us a little bit of quality on the ball and everything else, but just a brilliant character again in the dressing room. And I'm still in a WhatsApp group with them boys not there, and I'm still friendly with them. I just can't let that go, like, I mean, because it was just the best time to be in a dressing room with them there at that time. And then we went up the following year, like, I mean, and the whole thing was, could we establish a team in the Premier League on the budget that we had? Like, we had a budget not there, like, it was a shoestring, like, I mean, it's nothing compared to what they probably have now, like, I mean, but at that time it was about survival. So it is, like, but the boys were just unbelievable the following year. We added brilliant characters again, and this goes back to making sure that you sign the right people. So Mark Serdner came in, that there was a brilliant character. and he's still at the club, obviously a club captain, and you know what, he's just an credit, like, do you know what I mean? Because he's just another brilliant lad. So he is not. He's gone in there and he showed his leadership and his character. We bought in Barry Johnson, who was a friend of mine. Now Johnny and me both know he was done, but I needed leadership, I needed character in the dressing room, and I got that in spades. And Johnny about standards again is what we go back to, and he really was fantastic for us in that there again, like, do you know what I mean? So we just added a couple of key people, but it was more or less the same squad that we had the year previously. Do you know what I mean? And they just went again, like, so they did, and they showed that they belonged at that level. And then when at the end of the year, I felt we needed to kick on as a club. I think we needed more investment in that there, like, do you mean? We needed to open it up a little bit, because so much was falling on the same people, like, do you mean, constantly, like, do you mean? Now everybody was after talking to our players and that, like, do you mean? And I knew we were never going to get lightning in a bottle twice and that there, so to speak, like, do you mean? I knew we just couldn't capture that same camaraderie and togetherness that you need at a club like Carrick to stay there.
We survived.
We survived
the first year.
Miguel Chain scores an overhead kick in the 93rd minute of a game to beat Ballymena 2-1 and that there and stay in the Premier League. You just couldn't make it up, like, do you mean? Honestly, that last game of the season was just a roller coaster. But at no stage, you know, even up to the 94th minute, did I not believe that they were capable, and did I not believe they didn't deserve it? Like, do you mean? 100% they deserved it. Mark Sersner scores a goal in the 89th minute to make it 1 each, and Miguel Chain scores an overhead kick in the 93rd minute to keep us in the Premier League. You just couldn't make it up. You know what I mean? Like, but there afterwards, like I said, I just felt the club was moving in two different directions and that, like, I mean, what we were doing was just absolutely exhausting absolutely everything that we had, and ourselves, me and Millsy, were just trying to drag every last ounce out of everything that we could, and so was the players, like, I mean, in fairness and that, and we really dug in and we more than delivered on our side of the club. So we did, like, I mean, and listen, the club just needed more support, and needed more financial input and that they're put into it and everything else. But they were brilliant to work for. Davy Hilditch not there, still holding the highest regard not there. Michael Hughes not there is just a legend, like, you know what I mean, a phenomenal lad and everything else. Peter Clark's done a great job at building Carrick and not there and establishing Carrick now. So they were brilliant. It's just, I just needed it 5 years now ahead of where it was, you know what I mean, at the time. Yeah. And I just felt that at that stage, that was me. I was done. I was walking away from football, like, to me, not football altogether, because I would have stayed with the football and the coaching and the kids and stuff. I was just done with management. I felt that was it. That's all I wanted to do. To see could I do it, like, do you mean, and that's all I really wanted. So I did, and that, like, do you mean, and I wish I'd have stayed at that, like, do you know what I mean? But
you say you were done and you're walking away, then you decided to take over one of the biggest clubs in the country at probably one of the most difficult times.
Yes,
they've ever had.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Like, I mean, honestly, it was. I think there's a little bit in you in that there. You've just got that burning desire to think you can make the difference and you can make an impact. When
you left Carrick,
no aspirations of becoming a manager.
You were just thinking to yourself, I've done my bit.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what I've done.
Well, I knew I was never going to get another group of boys like them. I knew that was rare, because over the course of your career and that, you think back of all the dressing rooms you've been in. Now I've been in football since I was 15, so you're talking like over a 25-year period. And that you're looking at yourself, you're going, right, how many dressing rooms do you really remember? Absolutely every single person that you played with. That was a year and that you just wouldn't have given up for anything. Mm-hmm. And over the course of my career and that, I probably only had it maybe twice. My whole career, in 20 years of playing that, I only ever had it at that dressing room that we had at Coleraine, that real tight bond, that we were really tight together, like, I mean, and we still have that bond to this day. When we see each other, like, it's a warm embrace. I loved every one of them boys, and I just consider myself lucky to be around them boys. And I had it at Larne Old Boys. Believe it or not, that year that I played with my mates and that there, and not just because my mates, because you have success with it too. Mm-hmm. The two go hand in hand, the togetherness and the success and that there, because you get the success because of the togetherness. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It all interlinks and that, like, I mean, so having them bonds and that tightness and that there, but you know, they were the 2 years in a 20-year career. So I then got it in management within the space of 18 months of becoming a manager. Mm-hmm. I had it with them boys, and it was just, I walked to the ends of the earth for any one of them boys, like, you know what I mean? And if anything I could ever help them with and that there, they knew they just had to pick up the phone and do it, and I still would to this day. I would still be that person for them if they need help or support, and that I would be there for them. And I think that's your role as a manager to a certain degree. I suppose then whenever the thing with the Glentoran thing then came about, and there was no ambition of doing it. It was about 3 months of a gap, or 4 months. They had started the season poorly, like, do you know what I mean, and was obviously struggling a little bit. My name was being linked with it a little bit because of the success that we had with Carrick and everyone else. I never ever in a million years felt that I had done enough to get a job like a Glentoran job. Mm-hmm. Not even in the 2 years that I did, as much as we were both successful. I knew I was never going to go on, so I knew they were in trouble. So I did, because they wouldn't come and looking for me and that there if they were otherwise, you know what I mean? I suppose I went there with the expectation of them being a big, massive club, and they are. Glentoran is huge in that there, like, I mean, in terms of reputation, in terms of the establishment, what they've done over the course of their career. One of the most successful clubs in that there in our history of Northern Ireland. When I sort of then got pushed forward a little bit, like, I mean, about applying for it and speaking to them, I suppose not an ego. I don't think I've ever been ego driven. Like, I mean, I think the desire in that there to actually go, well, do you know what? It's a challenge. Do you know what I mean? And I thought it was a real challenge in that there. And would I get the opportunity ever again? You know what I mean? If I didn't take it, I probably again went into it a little bit naively. Like, so I did. I started the process in that there, thinking myself, well, Glentoran, got to have more than what Carrick have. Like, I mean, they have to have so much more in that there, because if we could do what we did with them, with what we had, then surely with more resources we could be so much better. Millsy, are we on board with this here? Millsy, yeah, he had my back 100%. Wasn't sure. He wasn't sure. He had more reservations than I did in that there. But once I start something out there, that becomes my focus in that, and that's what I try to drive. So I was, I guess, here. Once I started establishing it, I was going, you know what, I really want this. So I started fighting for it. Like, I mean, I started going in. I went through about 6 interviews. So I did, like, in every interview, I was like, I mean, getting more and more people I was speaking in front of, like, you know, and I outlined what I felt the problem was at Glentoran. Years gone by, and the Glentoran had a fear factor, and the Glens and Blues and that, they were nearly beat before they turned up. So it is because of the badge and because of the weight of their support and everything else, and the referees are always influenced by them and that, like, you mean, because just the weight of the club is too much not there, and it bears heavy on too many opposition. Also, bad for years, it had quality players not there, so you knew you could hurt anybody at any given time. The decline in the club has obviously been quite well documented, like, you know what I mean, about where they were at things. I probably didn't realise to the full degree in that until you're actually in it, and you realise that what they didn't have, like no training base, no training facilities. You were basically scrambling week for week in that to get a training ground. You know what I mean? The training facilities, when you did get them, were probably really poor because of historic problems that there of not paying bills and stuff, and not trying to bury your head in the sand of what the problem actually was. The club needed to be re-established and restructured and that there, and needed additional investment. But because they had ran the club so poorly previously, the current board that I worked under, like, I mean, their whole thing was trying to get stability. So it was never going to be attractive, and it was never going to be pretty. But they were servicing massive amounts of debt and that there, and that debt, like, I mean, nobody wanted to pay off the debt because they didn't run the debt up. So fans and that there rightly would be going, I ain't giving you my money and that there for you to put it into the hole and that there that you put yourself in to begin with, because all you're ever doing is paying off the interest on the debt that you have. So they were going well, it's not going to make the impact. Do you know what I mean? Because my £50 donation isn't going to kind of put a dent in the service, the debt that you're providing. So that whole thing was just about keeping the club afloat. So it was, like, I mean, it was incredible the time to go in there, and I probably didn't ask enough questions and that there with budgets and stuff. But something that was documented in that there and was never really came out, like, I mean, was whenever I get in there, they had a certain budget. I took over a club that was 11th in the table. And about 4 months into the club and that there, they came to me and that says, and we'd won a few games and we got ourselves out of the trouble that we were in. We were now out of a relegation battle. We were trying to push towards the top 6 thing, like, I mean, with the players that we had. There was key injuries to key personnel as well. Callum Burney was injured, Willie Gart was injured, and that there, and different things. Like, but you were looking at it yourself, right? How are we going to bridge the gap now to go to the next level? Like, I mean, well, we need to move a few players on. So players had to come and go in that there, and we had to shift a few boys out and establish the boys that we felt could make us better. But I came to me in that there 3-4 months and goes, oh, by the way, if we don't make European football, there's 100 grand comes off the budget. I go, 100 grand? Your budget's just about manageable with what you have, and you want to take 100 grand off the budget? Well, it says the money's gone. So how can the money just go? How does that work? It goes, well, the money we got from winning the Irish Cup in 2015 was split over 2 years. So they were in the second year, not there with the 2017, not there, they were into that money. So it is, so once that money went, it was gone, because it wasn't getting replaced unless it was replaced with European money. So there was nobody going to come in with a magic hat and go, oh, there's the 100 grand you go. So straight away, rather than getting rid of players that you know that you have to get rid of to replace them, you have to get rid of them now because you don't have the money to pay them. So it is, so 100 grand had to come off the wage bill, and it had to come off somewhere. So you had to release these players and let them go. So it is, so now you're losing your most established players now. They're the Stevie McAlorams, who I would have loved to have kept, had to go in that, like, you mean, Kieran Carwell's had to go in that there, Stevie O'Flynn's had to go in that there, and all these boys had to go because we just didn't have the money to pay them. So it is, but people on the outside not there was definitely some of the players would have gone anyway. Do you know what I mean? I would have had to have cleared the decks anyway, and not there, like, but there was no 100 grand to replace these players with. So now you've lost your 9 most established players not there, but you have no money to replace them with. So who do you replace? How do you replace them not there with players not there when you have no money to replace them with? Your budget's gone down to now a well below bottom 6 budget. You're now on a par now where budget's not there with clubs like Dungannon and places like this, with the greatest respect. So it is, and they work really hard to get their ones not there. But you had a mistrust between the supporters club and the board. You had a lack of transparency in that there, with the board letting people know exactly where we were as a club and what stage we were at, and was why this investment from Glentoran was an absolute godsend for them, and they just had to take that deal. So they did not there, because otherwise that club they would have been really continued to go downwards. Like, you know, there's a reason why after they sacked me that like 7 people didn't take the job, because they were more aware maybe of the situation, like, you mean, of what happened. They couldn't get anybody to take it until Ronnie McFall stepped in. And even then, like, you mean, so whenever they sacked me, we were sitting 5th in the table and we were still in the quarterfinals of the Irish Cup. I see that as progression.
And you'd still 2 ways into Europe.
So, but we went from being 11th in the league and that there whenever I took over, and we were 5th in that there, and we were in the Irish Cup, and we started the season like a house on fire, because what we did was we had to give kids a chance. We had to kind of go out and think, well, I want the chance more than I want the money. So it's because everybody wants to get paid and that, like, you mean. So we had to go after kids like we Nathan Kerr and that there, who came in and that, like, at that time. We had to go after people like John McGuigan at that time that we could afford and that, like, you mean, but you knew we were going to do really well. We started that season, if you look back at the 2017 season, we started like a house on fire. We were sitting top 3 after about 15, 16 games, and then John McGuigan got injured against Cliftonville and that, like, you mean, and he says, and then we lost how we could press. And the next game against Ballymena, we lost Callum Burney and Nathan Kerr to 2 groin strains. So there's my defence now going. So it is. So we had to kind of put the kids in that there, and kids need chances and need opportunities, and I'm all for playing kids. I'm a big believer in it. I said to him, but how do you, like, you know what I mean, but you know, the expectation of Glentoran is not to play kids and that they're on peanuts. It's to go and win. We are now lost 3 key players and that, like, I mean, in key positions not there, and we stumbled a bit, and we did, but we were still 5th in the league. We were still in the quarterfinals of the Irish Cup, like, do you know what I mean, and a game away to Coleraine. So we did. So listen, I think that your job as any custodian that, like, do you mean, is to go in there and make it better than when you went in. So it is. So we went from 11th to 5th and that, like, do you mean, and we still had 2 bites at the cherry in that in terms of European football. So it is, which was still a realistic possibility, because we could have been more of a match for anybody in a one-off game. Over the course of this year, the best team will win the league because they're the most consistent, but in a one-off game that you've got a chance, and I still felt that we had a chance in that there at that stage. But listen, that was just the way the club was and where it was at that time and that day, and I think it's a good thing for Glentoran now that they have that additional investment. But ultimately in that there, it left a wee sour note in my throat, because at Glentoran then the expectation is to win. So it is, and that's right. They're right to think that, like, I mean, because of the club they are, but because of the way the club had been run historically and that there, and at the time there was no realism in terms of here's the expectation and here's where we are. There was no relationship between the two. And if the two had been a bit more kind of, okay, well, our realism has to come down, or we have to establish ourselves better as a club in order to kind of get the two to marry up a bit better and then build moving forward. It just was what it is. But again, it's funny, because the whole time in that there that I was the Carrick manager, the whole time I was a Glentoran manager, I was the Larne 2010 manager, because my son was a 2010 kid playing here at Larne Football Club, and I was down here managing that wee team too, like, do you mean? So I was taking his wee side and squeezing in training sessions for them and that, like, do you mean, and trying to get my boy wanted to get involved in football. And I didn't have the time, because I was a full-time sports development officer in Belfast now, working for Community Sports Network, working around programmes all around Belfast and that there, like, you mean, all different science programmes. What was a brilliant experience for me. I was working in McGabry prison that there, working with prisoners, trying to tackle reoffending and that, like, you mean, and keep people on the straight and narrow, which I absolutely loved, and love working with the lads and that there, and some brilliant work going on. And BCSDN, or Community Sports Network as they are now, is a brilliant organisation that do so much fantastic work around Belfast and then around surrounding areas. Now they're branched out a bit more now, like, I mean, but it's a brilliant company. They do some fantastic work about engaging with communities and engaging with people, and using sport and that there as a hook and that there to get people into a better lifestyle. But it's like, but the big thing was then I was still kind of here at Larne, like, so it is, and obviously during that time then the Kenny Bruce revolution had kicked in, that, like, you mean, and you've seen where it was going, and you can see the additional investment. You've seen what he was looking to achieve here at the club in terms of infrastructure, in terms of what he put in place and everything else and that there, and this club has just gone from strength to strength. And sometimes in your life in that day, in the right place at the right time, and I very much was in the case of that, like, because yes, I was a sports development officer, so I always had that backup and that there, but I was managing Glentoran. When the Glentoran thing went, I straight away felt that there, because Larne jumped on the opportunity of having somebody with my kind of experience and that there to get involved with the club and the youth side of things, you know what I mean, and from there, like, I've been able to build it to what I am now, you know. Yes. Yeah, so again, because I was in that position, that whenever I came away from the Glens and that, I was already sort of here coaching my son's team and that, and getting involved with them, and always trying to help other coaches and stuff, because at this stage now I'm probably been in sports development for about 10-15 years, you know what I mean, so I would say I'm quite a vastly experienced coach in terms of that. A UEFA Pro licensed coach as well, I mean, something like I talk about education being so important for young coaches now, that you got to continually upskill yourself, and that's the secret, I mean, if you stand still and stop and rest on what you have, you know, when football continues to evolve and that there and move forward. So I suppose it's keeping on top of your own CPD and making sure you're continually upskilling yourself to become better at what you offer. You know what I mean? You can never stop learning from everybody. Like, I mean, there's everybody out there you can learn off. Be it a coach out there just doing a drill that you really like, and there were kids, I mean, you can pick that and go, that's brilliant, I'm going to try that, like, I mean, or if it's out there with Tiernan Lynch, the first team manager, who's working on tactical things and out there, you can all learn off it so much. And I've been lucky, I suppose, coming into this environment. I suppose coming off the back of my own experience in the first team management and everything else, Tiernan was nothing but open to me coming in and out there and being part of what he is and that there's a club. When the club approached me about coming full time, then I had a decision to make, because I was a full time sports development officer. I had to give that up in order to come on here. I couldn't do both. But this was an opportunity to get into full time football again out there, and something that I wanted since I was a kid. To do this on where I live and out there in my town, I mean, it's fairy tale stuff and that what Kenny's done for this town, and Kenny Bruce, the owner, and that, like, who really kind of is community driven and seen an opportunity in here in Larne, because he's born and raised in the town. He understood there's some really good people in the town out there who really care about this town out there, and he's seen this here as a model out there to be a flagship out there for Larne as a town. So I mean, look at us and look at how well we do things, I suppose, out there, and with the right people around it, with the right expertise out there, we can grow this and grow this and grow this. And Kenny continues to dazzle us with what he continually builds and that there, like if this new stand that actually goes ahead and gets worked, the stands that you see, the pitch you see out behind of it, is all about establishing that there a place where you can actually harbour the kids and that there to come through. You know what I mean? So this is perfect now, like, I mean, that we have the facilities now. Like a young 15-year-old of me, I may not needed to leave Larne at that stage. I maybe need to go there to get the opportunities. The opportunities are now here for us. So not only now do we retain our best players in Larne, like, I mean, we're now starting to recruit better kids. So it is. So my role in terms of the academy director, I'm really fortunate, like, I have a bit of a foot in both camps and that there, where I actually do coaching with the first team, so I get to stay around the senior boys and the banter you have with senior players and stuff, and the expertise and the level that they're at. So I challenge myself as a coach, and I get to work with Tiernan and Seamus every day, which is just brilliant in itself, and an education every day. You come to work, you're getting educated with the two boys, because they're brilliant coaches, and I hope I lend something to that, like, I mean, as well. And then about establishing that there and giving all that experience I have now to our coaches now there within our academy. That's ultimately my role now there, is to kind of pass that on, and I deliver CPD for them, like, I mean, so I'll bring the coaches in every 5th Sunday, and we'll do workshops and stuff around various things, small-sided games, maybe it's passing drills, maybe it's technical drills that they need, whatever they need. We try to identify that, like, I mean, as a group, and then I go out and deliver it to them, and we bring in guest coaches and stuff, I guess, to come down and support them. So they're offering a better product to the kids. The facilities that we have now and out there for the kids and out there to work out of, like, you know, they get to train here, which is every kid should absolutely love and adore, like, to be coming here and playing. So again, we're trying to take away all the barriers as to why kids can't be successful and why kids can't go all the way into full-time football. During my time then we've established a full-time scholarship program here at Larne. So now we have 45 kids now there in full-time football alongside full-time education. Going back to my own experience, I suppose, is not having that plan B automatically in place and that there is detrimental in later years when the plan A doesn't work out. So we always try to make sure that there now the kids absolutely must get the plan B, so that they can pursue their plan A as hard as they want and always have something to fall back on. So it is. So the full-time scholarship program alongside our education providers, LLS and Stephen Gerrard Academy, absolutely first class. They offer the kids opportunity to come into full-time football. But like I said, is they do a BTEC level 3 advanced diploma in sports science, and that's a great level of education to get them on to further things involved in sport, and they get full-time football. So you get to see these kids actually getting in amongst the first team and getting into that environment. And to date, we've had 9 scholars make debuts for the first team, which is absolutely brilliant. And kids in full-time football, like, it's things you could only dreamed of, and out there as a kid growing up in this town, the opportunities they got would have been there for you, like, I mean, and now it's a realistic goal for the kids to get into our full-time academy and hopefully push on into our full-time first team.
Fantastic. Well, that is the aim, to get local players into the first team.
100%, like, you mean, I think that's it. We've got Jeff Hughes there, like, you mean, and he's like Peter Pan, like, so he's 36 and that there, but he's running around out there like an 18-year-old. So he is, you know what I mean? But someone like Jeff isn't going to go on forever, like, you mean, so Jeff's the absolute ideal person that, you know, he's came up, yes, he went away and played his football, but he's came back to the town out there, and he's a fantastic role model for any young player. You know what I mean? He's an absolute class act. Our aim in that there as a club and that is to develop them and bring them through, like, you mean, and establish them in our first team and that there. It's certainly our aim, but it's not just have to be local kids, obviously, if they've got that connection to the town and everything else, but we like to think about how we treat our kids and how we look after our kids out there and our young players, is that they should feel that affiliation to the football club. And I go back to, like, I wasn't from Ballymena and I wasn't from Coleraine, I wasn't from Wolverhampton, I wasn't from Bolton, but I loved the places out there and I gave everything I had for the place out there because of how they looked after me and how I felt about the affinity I had with the place. You know what I mean? So I think that any kid out there who comes down and part of our programme will have that feeling, like, you mean, about how we actually, the relationships we build with them, the care that we put into them, the wraparound service that we offer them and out there to make them the best person they could possibly be. Because we look at every individual, like, you mean, we think so at the centre of everything is the kid, and then it's all the wraparound service that we provide. You know, our coaches, well, all our coaches are of an extremely high standard, like, do you know what I mean? So the coaching will take care of itself. Our strength conditioning sessions, our support staff and our nutritionists, everybody out there who works on the staff in the background to look after the kids' well-being. Our well-being people, like, do you mean, who looks after them, our education providers and that, like, do you mean, who LLS and the Stephen Gerrard Academy, which is absolute watertight. And if the kids don't train, if the kids don't do academics and they don't follow work and that there and they don't meet the standard that we expect of them, they don't train. If they don't train, don't get football. So it is so that we've got that lure over them, like, so it is about the importance of education. And then you have the parents of the kids who become a massive part of that too, like, do you mean, in terms of that support and about make sure they're doing the right things away from the pitch and that, then away from us. So if we can get all them things right and we are communicating on a regular basis, then there's no reason why the kid should flourish, you know what I mean, and shouldn't reach his potential out there, which is hopefully first team football.
Fantastic. Well, it definitely is sounds like a fantastic place to be, and it's definitely one that's growing and getting bigger by the week.
Yeah, it's growing, like the academy is. It continues to grow out there, and we continue to look at new ways of getting better at what we do. Matty, like, to me, so yeah, it's a great environment. Like this, and I'm like a child in a sweet shop. I get to go out here, and I'm never away from the place and out there. It's because of the love of the place and out there, and yes, I have an affinity with Larne Football Club and out there. But these kids out there have got a great opportunity to come to this football club, and the pathways we now have for them is things that I could have only dreamed of as a young lad growing up in this town. Fantastic.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for having us up. Thank you very much for coming on, and we wish you and the club every success in the future.
Thanks for having me, pal. Appreciate it.
Thank you.